Nowhere is the economic meltdown more dire than in California. Ballooning deficits, gridlock lawmakers, a $42 billion budget shortfall.
The whole deck has been stacked against taxpayers. These costs are going to destroy government in the state and destroy the essential services.
It's a state that's imploding financially.
The university system, once the crown jewel of the nation, has been cut so much that tuition has nearly doubled in the past 5 years.
Lawsuits from radical environmentalists, as well as the actions of liberal lawmakers in Congress, have fundamentally changed the way California distributes its water.
Unfunded liabilities are growing.
Right.
Beyond a certain point, it's very difficult without big tax increases to make this up.
Well, economic woes in California has pushed city after city into bankruptcy.
There is no way out of this by merely taxing your way out of this or hoping to grow your way out of this.
A generation ago, California was poised to be the engine of America's economy. The state was home to a growing population and culture of innovation in technology, energy, and tourism. As good public schools prepared students for success, even better universities set the standard for higher education. Today, the state's economy has been slow to recover from the Great Recession, and signs of decline are everywhere. California's unemployment rate is well above the national average. Overtaxed and overregulated businesses are fleeing, cities are falling into bankruptcy, and public schools are at the bottom of national rankings. The Golden State has become the Beholden State, beholden to special interests, bad ideas, and misguided policies.
I have lived here since the early 70s, so at that time, the California dream, as we might talk about it, was very much in evidence. People were still coming from other parts of the country as well as from overseas, and it seemed a place where anything was possible.
To paraphrase Milton Friedman, it's really hard to screw California up. Say, take today. In most places in the Colorado or Michigan, it's either raining or snowing, so people are out in construction. They can build things all year round. This vineyard will produce, if I were to have wine grapes, 15 tons an acre. It produces more raisins per acre than anywhere in Europe. So we have a wonderful natural environment. I'm not even getting into, as I said, the Monterey Shale Formation, enormous stands of timber on those mountains, gas, oil, gold, everything.
The University of California was founded in the 1870s, originally at Berkeley, with the intention of creating a university that would become a beacon of learning and knowledge for California. And for nearly a century, it lived up to its promise. It was a source of scientific progress, not just in California, but nationally. It owns more research patents than any other university in the country. It worked with the state's farms to create new developments in agronomy, develop nuclear technology, and extraordinary medical advances, which it continues to do to this day.
You just have to remember about Hollywood that it was founded by immigrants and first-generation Americans, and many of them Jews who had seen what else was out there, and they loved this country. They loved the country, and they were businessmen. And so their purpose was to present an image of America to itself that America would love, because they wanted to make money, they wanted to earn profits, and they wanted to entertain.
There are two really powerful forces towards the devolution of the California economy. One has been the incredible power of the public employee unions, which essentially what it does is it actually disables government, because it takes so much money for pensions and salaries for public employees that government actually can't do anything. So the government, which had been a tremendously positive force in the time of Earl Warren and Pat Brown, has really become a very negative force. Increased taxation, but without much in the way of results. Coupled with that is the growth of the Green Movement, which really was kind of born in California and is now so deeply entrenched in the bureaucracy and in the political discourse here that it becomes very, very difficult to do much of anything here.
The California water wars make no sense because the state is fiscally insolvent. We have water under the ground, but it needs to be replenished through the snowmelt. And our problem is the environmentalists are making these rivers that come out of these mountains flow out to San Francisco Bay. So in theory, salmon, which we don't think ever really went all the way to the mountains, can go to the mountains. So they're trying to create a utopian environment that never existed at the expense of farmers.
It's a shame that this iron grip of regulation and taxes and union strength that has wrapped itself around the industry because of the way the state is run has forced so much of the production, the actual filming of movies, not only out of the state but out of the country.
In the 1960s, you saw the growth of the bureaucracy, which started to take over college campuses like kudzu. You also saw the direct infusion of politics with the free speech movement on the Berkeley campus. From there, you got the anti-war politics morphing into an utter obsession with diversity, which now determines practically everything that the university does.
Our politics are as bizarre as anything else in California. We have working class Latino representatives voting with rich people from Marin County on programs that screw working class Hispanic people. In other words, we have such a disconnect of what is actually in the interests of people and how people vote. And of course, as you move to a one-party system, which is what we have, there really is no penalty for somebody doing something that hurts their district as long as they're a Democrat, because they're going to get elected anyway.
The Los Angeles and Bay Area elite have been able to create a message, I'm speaking now because 40% of the state is Latino, that they, the old white angry people, don't like you, and they don't want to give amnesty, or they don't want to have the DREAM Act, or they don't like affirmative action, and we do, and therefore we are going to be your protectors and representatives, and in exchange for that client-patron relationship, we want you to vote for this, 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 this. And some Latino legislators in this region say, well, wait a minute, 50 miles right over there, we could have 100,000 people fracking and pumping, oil, and this gasoline pump doesn't have to charge $4 a gallon. We could have $2 a gallon gas, and all of our youth could be getting $30 an hour, but we're not doing it because somebody way over there in San Francisco says it's not good for us, but it is good for us.
You can trace so much of what happened to the movie industry by comparing the film Casablanca to The English Patient, which is almost the anti-Casablanca. In Casablanca, you have a cynical man discovering that the problems of three little people don't really amount to a hill of beans when freedom and the world is at stake. In The English Patient, you have a completely cynical approach where a love between two people far, far outweighs whether the Nazis win or the West wins. What difference does it make as long as we can be in love with one another? The hero actually says this.
UC continues to succeed in the sciences at an extraordinary level, but that mission is under relentless threat from the diversion of scarce taxpayer resources into this phantom diversity crusade. And what is extraordinary, the bureaucracy grows from year to year. In 2011, UC Berkeley's Chancellor of Equity and Diversity, who makes $200,000 a year, presided over a princely kingdom of 17 staffers. By the next year, it was already up to 24. There is no stopping this juggernaut unless taxpayers demand that the university starts husbanding their resources more wisely.
The whole principle of what's going on in California today is based on the idea that somebody gave me a lot of stuff, and nature gave me a lot of stuff, and it's mine, and I don't have to reinvest it or add to it, and I can deplete it and pursue things that otherwise are economically absurd.
The question you always ask is, can California come back? And my point here is, of course it can come back. It's got great natural resources, it's got talented people, it's got energetic immigrants. So the elements are all there. The question is, will the legislature and local officials focus on economic growth? That's the biggest difference I see between California and other states, is that other states, they're thinking, how do we grow? How do we create more jobs? How do we create more opportunities?
The good news, the great news for people who care about a diverse culture, a culture that searches for truth, a culture that speaks truth, is that this is an amazing revolutionary moment in the arts. The system is democratizing. The grip that the studios held on film, the grip that Hollywood held on film, the grip that publishers held on books is vanishing, even as we stand here talking. It's disappearing. That means there's an opening for talented conservatives, talented people who believe in the American project, talented people who believe in capitalism and free markets and free ideas to start to create art.
We need to totally decimate the diversity bureaucracy, tell faculty that they're allowed to hire based on merit, that race and gender should be no part of it, which is in any case unconstitutional. We need to stop wasting the money and put it back into the classroom, back into hiring more faculty so students don't have to struggle for their classes, and possibly keeping tuition at a stable level.
Well, I think the political revolution that has to take place in this state is that working and middle-class people in the interior have got to start to realize what their interests are and to start voting those interests, and I don't care which party, as opposed to sort of figuring that they all have the same interest as, you know, the 65-year-old in Marin County with a gray ponytail driving his Porsche who has his money and he's all set.
California's not lost because there's very simple solutions to our problems, given that we have this natural and inherited wealth. One would be to use the natural resources that we have. Take the Monterey Shale Formation, which probably has the largest gas and oil reserves in the continental United States, and use them. The second is that California state employees do not need the type of defined benefit retirement system that lets a highway patrolman retire at $200,000. We could have easily a 401k match contribution system like Stanford or Pepperdine does, or everybody does in the private sector. The third, I think, is a little bit more difficult, but there's no reasons that California employees have to be unionized, because that is going to ensure that we're not going to have enough employees and they're always going to be paid far higher than we can afford. Finally, we've got to convince the population that the taxes are going to go down so they're not the most expensive in the country, and the services are going to go up, because right now it's not just the high taxes, it's the value. You get some of the worst public services at the highest prices, and that's unsustainable.
California is like the really, really pretty girl at the prom, always going to get attention, doesn't have to work that hard to get it. In contrast, Texas is the not so pretty girl who's got to have personality and drive to make it. And California has been resting on its beauty for much, much too long.